Good morning, everyone. My name is Danny Williams. I am a technical account manager here at Epic Games. Thank you all for being here this morning. We've got a great panel that I think really is a unique one amongst things that are being discussed here this week, in that it brings together both the creative side of Fortnite Creative and very interesting work going on that side of the world, along with the enterprise side of our business, people that are using Unreal to do really cool things for people like astronauts that are trying to get back to the moon. So we've got a great panel. I'm going to quickly introduce who we have here today, and then give you a little bit of background on how this project got started, and then have these gentlemen share with everyone some really cool work that they've been doing. So again, Danny Williams. I'm on the enterprise side of the business here at Epic, working in simulation. On the far left, we've got Marshall Costantini from the European Space Agency, doing some amazing work using Unreal to train astronauts to do all variety of things, which again, he'll dive into. We've got Julian Reyes from Buendia, the founder and CEO of Buendia, that is a company that's been on contract with NASA for 10 years or so now, close to 10 years. 10 years. Doing Unreal work, again, building applications, VR applications in Unreal to train astronauts to walk through different use cases. Again, he'll dive into that. On the complete other side of the spectrum, we've got Boomer Gurney here, Fortnite Creative creator, part of Team Power, who's done some amazing Fortnite Creative work, and has been a valuable addition to this team in helping us understand how to make science stuff fun and interesting to actually play in a game, which has been an interesting balance. So Boomer, welcome. And then lastly, we've got James Golding, lastly but not certainly not least. And I'm going to give a little bit of a background on who James is and how this whole project got started. It's been close to 2 years. I don't think it's been a while. We got started. As some background, I've been at Epic for close to 3 years. James, on the other hand, has been at Epic for 21 years. Employee number 20. Oh. Yeah, he's been at Epic for a long time. Very early in the company, has a great background of work that he's done with Unreal, with Gears of War, lots of really interesting work. And I've been at Epic for about 6 months when this all started. Was doing some work with Julian and NASA for a community challenge that NASA was doing using Unreal. I had put out a status update to just say, hey, here's what we're doing with NASA. It's going great. Like, here's some information about it. And I get an email from James that says, hey, Danny, I'm James Golding. And I'm like, who's James Golding? And I go, I look him up online. And I'm like, what the hell is James Golding emailing me for? I'm like, did I do something? Am I in trouble? I was like, I don't know if I've told you this, but it terrified me. I was like, this is my dream job. I work at Epic Games now. It's the first games company I've ever worked for. And I'm like, I have screwed up and I'm done. It's 6 months in and I'm calling it quits. Thankfully, that wasn't the case. James said to me, hey, I saw the NASA update about the community challenge. Do you think they'd be interested in a Fortnite collaboration? And I was like, I have no idea. I have no clue. But that started what is now we are calling Lunar Horizon. It's been a very, very interesting journey. James, I want to get your perspective. Why did you reach out? What was your thought? I guess the one other piece of context here is UEFN, which I think most people are familiar with now, was in its infancy at this time. I didn't know what it was. Many people at Epic didn't. And so, yeah, you had this idea. Where did that come from?
Yeah, so I'd been working with UEFN, sort of learning it internally and playing around with it for a while and looking for opportunities where we could use it to go beyond, obviously there's amazing games that people are making in creative right now, making in UEFN right now, but like, how can we go even further? How can we broaden the audience and broaden the sort of content that we're making? And so I was just thinking about what might be fun things to do, particularly people who are already using Unreal, that could use their assets, their experience to bring that into these new tools and this big audience. And so I think there's three main goals that I think we're hoping to achieve with the project, and it seemed like it might be an interesting idea. One was, how do we show people who play Fortnite that the range of stuff you might be able to do is going to get more and more diverse and interesting and broad over time. I think the second one is in terms of people who create in Fortnite, particularly or create in Unreal Engine, that thinking about it as a potential to reach this wide audience, and particularly if you're already using Unreal, how you can bring some of that experience, some of those assets even, and we'll talk more about that later, into an experience to reach that audience. So I think it's both for players and creators, and also for ourselves. Like, everything we try and do that's different, we learn something new about the tools and the capabilities and sort of push things further. So I was just interested in opportunities, and when I saw that come up, it's like, got to at least ask. So yeah, that's sort of where the conversation started of like, okay, could we do some collaboration that might benefit all those three groups of people?
Great. So yeah, so it really has been an interesting process. because we've brought together these two worlds of people doing really interesting hardcore science and engineering work in Unreal, and then the gaming side of the business, it's been very interesting to see, like, how do we bridge that gap? How do we bring those two sides together? So I'm gonna start advancing slides here because I should have done that a second ago. So we've got a great panel. I'm gonna hand it off to Marshall from the European Space Agency. Came in a little, like maybe halfway through this, starting to help us do this, and he's going to share with us a bunch of amazing work they're doing in Unreal to bring astronauts back to the moon. So, Marshall, take it away. I'm going to pass that down.
Oh, yeah. Thank you very much for the introduction. Yeah, it's a pleasure to be here. So, you know, what's really interesting about the European Space Agency is we really bring together 22 member states, 22 countries. And I think it's an important thing to note. Like, ESA is, as much as I understand it, the only major space agency that is truly international by its own definition. And so we do a whole lot of things with all of this. Benefit of that, like we do satellites for navigation, satellites for Earth observation, we do space launches, we do science, and we do human and robotic space exploration. And that's where I work. So I'm an engineer, and I contribute to our return to the moon. And we are going back to the moon all together. And that is something I actually heard, like I think it was last lunch. One guy would say, yeah, but you know, with the inflation and all of this, like this probably is the first budget cut that we make. And I wanted to like talk a little bit about this. Like, no, like when we get government money, then we spend it back, and we spend it back on industry. You know, we buy engineering for fancy toys that we're sending up there. And then that's very qualified workforce. At that scale of economics, the money that we spend back in Europe is in closed circuit. So it dynamises the economy, drives innovation, drives high technology, competitiveness. And then it also is like, you know, science. Like if we go there, we might just discover something amazing scientifically. Further than that, like just imagine, it's hard to quantify, but just the sheer amount of kids that are going to look up at an astronaut, right? Or a map on Fortnite, and would be amazed and maybe work a tiny bit better at school or whatever they do to pursue better their dream. Now that is a drive that at the scale of like a continent like Europe is actually significant. And last, most importantly, something overlooked is also the geopolitical aspect of it. Like if I'm telling you about my 22 member states working together, it means that every day I wake up, I know that I'm going to spend my day working for the peaceful collaboration between countries. And it is as amazing as it sounds, guys. So I want to dive a little bit better into all this collaboration. And as a space engineer, I'm sorry, guys, I had to place some form of space hardware on the picture there. So this is a part of the Orion spacecraft. It's been launched for Artemis 1. This one's the one for Artemis 2. You can see the crew of Artemis 2 right in front of it. So for those who maybe don't know Orion is actually the vehicle in the bottom left of the picture there. And you can see this little mushroom shape it has. It's actually split in two. So the conical shape, this is something, it's the capsule in which you'd have the cockpit, the hatch to access the rest of the Lunar Gateway. And so that is built by NASA. But the towering structure that you see behind the Artemis 2 crew here, that's built in Europe. It's the European Service Module. And we bring with that module like communication capabilities, propulsions, electricity with the solar panels. So that's that level of intricacy that I really mean when we say we are going together. Like, just look at the logos of the Lunar Gateway. Like, if you count, like, my 22 member states, then you count JAXA with Japanese guys. If you count NASA, if you count Canada, it's already 25 countries all working together there. And that's really one part where the sum is greater than its parts, right? And my role within all of these grand scheme is I've essentially brought Unreal Engine to the mix. So I'm here, I'm the lead engineer on the European Space Agency's extended reality laboratory. And it's all about making sure that we build the right things. No, guys, like we build developmental prototypes, and then sustain engineering prototypes, validation prototypes, certification prototypes, training mockups, like so much. And if you simulate the whole thing, well, maybe you don't need to build as many things, because when you're going to build it, you're actually going to build it right. And so for this, I wanted to show, like, it's actually my last week. I received an email, so this is completely fresh out of the oven. This one is, I received a mail, like as you do, but this one was from the management of the, if you can see towards the right, center right, you get the International Habitation Module. For this space station, this is a module that we're building, and it's the living room and the bedroom of the space station, if you want. And there, we want to have cameras on the outside so that we can monitor the spacewalk around that module. We need cameras to see the astronauts, what they're doing. And depending on where we place these cameras outside the module, we might have blind spots, right? And the management in my email was telling me, guys, the industry, the manufacturer of that module requires 2 weeks of engineering time to assess what are the blind spots. And they were asking us, but you guys at the lab, can you do it faster? How long would it take? So a couple of emails later, I had the CAD model of that module, and well, you guys maybe know Data Smith. I just opened it up in the editor, right? And a tiny bit of development later, I was doing line traces and having scene capture components around the thing. And voila, not only I had that estimate in a fraction of the time, it took me less than half a day to have the whole this, but it wasn't about, send the request, wait for 2 weeks, analyze the result, send the request, review, etc. No, this time we could do it quite different. I telling you, guys, we need a call. Like, let's make a meeting. We're going to have spacewalk trainers, optics experts, mechanical engineers, and I all around the table. And we'll make the right decision. This time, we're going to move the camera. I'll move it in the editor. It's pretty easy, right? Just drag the gizmo. And then the simulation updates. What I'm telling you guys here is that with those tools, it's not about building video games. It's about building a space station. Thanks to that, we can make decisions on how we're building it, right? That's one thing, like the entire XR lab is about helping all of human spaceflight we're doing in Europe, and that's as broad as it sounds. One last thing that I wanted to mention is the amount of training that we can do. Thanks to Unreal Engine, all the astronauts that go to the space station nowadays, and that includes the one in JSC, I can see our 2 colleagues from NASA right there. Like NASA astronauts, ESA astronauts, we deploy a training tool. This one, maybe you can recognize it from the content examples. I kind of remixed it a little bit. But with virtual reality, the arm you can see in the back, that's a 16 meters long arm that can like unclick module from one place and dock them somewhere else. So we really don't want them to bump into things when the astronauts are moving the arm. And we train substantially faster, almost twice as fast, thanks to this program in virtual reality. So it saves a whole amount of resources on the training division. And to get back into like the Lunar Horizon project, the idea is we're also simulating a bit like what Lee and Eddie showed yesterday. We do simulate the lunar surface to try to estimate what would be the concept of operation. We call that ConOps for short, to estimate a various number of things. And so there the message I want to bring is what you guys are doing, it's not just fake, it is actually grounded. We just do like a more advanced version, like ergonomics assessment, but for real, to like just design the next cargo lander that we'll have on the moon.
Right.
So thank you very much. Like, I hope I haven't been too long. Okay.
Thank you, Marshall. And just to clarify, you said this the other day, Unreal is going to space, yes?
Oh, yes. So I'm the principal investigator on an experiment. We're having some VR headsets on board, and we think that we can train. So the idea there is, if they choose to change something on the piping, like the way, for instance, we rejuvenate the air, there's a number of things that they have to do, like unscrew something here, unscrew something there, extract this part there, and don't unplug that thing. Like, all of this are very spatial things. Like, you need a lot of situational awareness because the machine is all around you. So the worst thing we could do is what we do today, that is showing it on a flat screen. Instead, we're doing research into how we could actually train the person with a VR headset in space. And for that, yes, I'm uploading a packaged build of UE427, I think, over there, yeah.
You heard it here. Unreal's going to space.
Yes.
Thank you, Marshall. That was great update. Yeah, thank you. Amazing work that you guys are doing. Julian Reyes from Buendia, take it away. You're up next.
Hi, everybody. Julian Reyes. Like Danny was saying, I founded Buendia. Have been collaborating with NASA for almost 10 years now. This all kind of started in a different way for me. Specifically, almost 10 years, I was part of a company called Fusion Media Group. We were a group of VR developers really excited about the release of the Oculus DK2 and said, hey, we really want to start building something with this. And one of the first projects that we started working on was focused on saying, well, what does a mission to Mars look like in the year 2030? And that kind of led us into this very interesting path where we began to look at different research papers that NASA was working on, specifically on habitation, spacesuits, rovers. And we started to work with a group at MIT of PhD students who are now actually at NASA, focused on really answering these questions. And during that time there, we ended up, after a few years, we ended up forming a partnership through a Space Act agreement with NASA to develop a vision of what a mission to Mars in 2030 would look like. And in that process, we started to use Unreal to build this project, and working with different groups from Johnson Space Center, Langley Research Center. And during that process, took us about 3 to 4 years in the development, we started to notice the value that Unreal had for not just being able to visualize these experiences and produce a habitat on the surface of Mars, but actually its use case in being able to support training, support different types of simulation capabilities. And so after the release of this public project, we were contacted by a group internally at Johnson Space Center, led by Frank Delgado, who was running, at the time, the NASA Hybrid Reality Lab, and he said, well, why don't we use all the work that you were doing to be able to support some of this EVA training and different types of scenarios? And that's where the idea for a project now, which has been almost 7 years in development, it's called the XR Operations Support System, or XOSS, came about. And I'll have a quick video here to share with you guys. Maybe one more to press play? Okay, cool. So we built this project using Unreal Engine 5.3. It features Mars and lunar and low Earth orbit environments, 40 square kilometers of Jezero crater. What you're seeing there is actually a design by Hassel, which won the 3D printed NASA's Centennial 3D printed challenge. So integrating habitats, rovers, and all sorts of EVAs that the astronauts can operate in, both on, as I was saying, on Mars and lunar environments. The project itself has been used to support different types of EVA scenarios and simulations such as Chapea, which is a 1-year sim where people will live inside of a 3D printed habitat, simulating daily life. Those EVA scenarios occur outside in a in an area where the users are wearing motion capture trackers. It's a multi-user environment, so they will see each other in the same space. We also have this low Earth orbit environment, but really building out a robust system that supports the simulation of EVAs in Unreal. And it's been a pretty interesting journey so far, and we continue to build out new capabilities like supporting a persistent state of the world, being able to track every object that is in an EVA session for review after a post-session. It's been the majority of the work that we've been doing over the last year, creating basically a 3D playback system where you can evaluate a certain step in an EVA scenario. We have repair scenarios for ISRU systems, so obviously prototypes, because these systems don't really exist yet for bases on Mars, but in the sense where people are able to perform these tasks and we're able to evaluate them. As I was saying, I kind of already went through this. We started this back in 2014. It evolved into Shire, which was another environment that we were working on with the Hybrid Reality Lab, focused on building or using analog photogrammetry of Kilauea volcano in Hawaii to be able to create a simulation where the astronauts would be able to guide themselves back to base without navigation, like a heads-up display. And that evolved into XOSS, where we have been able to create these environments using Unreal. And yeah, I think just in general, really this journey has what started as us saying we'd love to build a mission to Mars, has evolved into something that has a utility far beyond what we expected. And so it's been a really great joy to be able to support these teams, especially the Advanced Operations Concept Lab. And as Danny was mentioning prior to this, we're all launching an open source competition where we basically open sourced our Unreal Engine so that people could help us design EVA scenarios for that upcoming or now running Shapiro simulation. So we had over 5,000 Unreal developers participating, developing everything from microscopes that could scan rocks on the surface of Mars to drones that would survey an area prior to an EVA. And the idea is that we can continue to grow that essentially with this open source tool where people can continue to contribute based off of these bounties that are set by NASA and the NASA Tournament Lab to achieve these goals. And really, it's actually something I was talking to Marshall about, where everything that we're all developing to be able to simulate capabilities on the lunar surface or whether it's low Earth orbit is a monumental task. So it's not something that neither my company or just ESA or NASA can all achieve on their own. So in that sense, I think being able to be, as open as possible, to be able to ideate and really define what that future looks like of humanity in space and conceptualize those things in a tool like Unreal where a lot of these things are possible, I think is definitely the direction that we should go. Yeah, and we do, on the open source side, do plan to release another editor soon that will feature all these new environments for the Moon, Mars. On the Moon, I forgot to mention, it's a Shackleton crater, which is one of the intended landing sites for the Artemis mission. So we've developed it using data from the Lunar Reconnaissance Orbiter and integrated it using nanite landscape and nanite displacement, and as well as accurate lighting models for the lunar environment. And yeah, jumping into Fortnite. So this, obviously, when we heard about this project, we were really hyped, honestly.
You were about to say over the moon, weren't you?
Yeah.
Yeah, I saw it. You almost said it.
To be able to participate in this, I think, again, especially when you look at the infrastructure of what UEFN is, It's really a facilitator for ideation and for people to come together and bring up concepts and facilitate that getting to, or that Fortnite content getting to people, to be able to upload your own maps to Fortnite and share with your friends and have this experience. So in that context, I think what we really wanted to do is be able to share everything we could that we've been working on internally and with the groups at NASA and now ESA specifically, where we also featured Hassel, who designed a vision for a lunar settlement for up to 100 or so people. So more of an advanced concept, but we thought it would fit Fortnite perfectly to really inspire people to say, hey, there's a journey here where we will one day live on the moon, and this is what it could potentially look like. And so that collaboration with Hassel has been awesome in the way that they really think far ahead and conceptualize these things. And this collaboration with ESA has been a pretty great example of that. So we received CAD models from Hassel and developed them for UEFN and integrated them into this project, and as well as the work that Marshall was doing on the Argonaut landers. They had a study that was based off offloading, was it offloading equipment from the?
Yeah, like the short story is, at first we wanted ladders, like do we have a picture of, no, we don't have a picture of the Argonauts, no. But like essentially, like there's the lander part and then there's the cargo part on top. And the first idea was like, we just go a ladder to go grab the cargo on top. The problem is that at 1/6 of G, our astronauts literally told us, no, we don't want to climb a ladder in 1/6 G, it's horrible. So instead we winched down the payloads. Awesome. And also a study done in Unreal, by the way.
Yep. Yeah, so we received those models, integrated them as well, created a miniaturized version of Shackleton Crater so that people could get a chance to run all the way to Shackleton Crater, at least in UEFN, and get a chance to see all the sights from that environment. Some mock-ups for ISRU and robotics that you would potentially find on the moon. Here's some shots of the Hassel ESA lunar habitat. So this is uncovered. Obviously, this design has radiation shielding, but it really is designed off of these inflatable pods that you can compress inside of a vehicle that transfers them over to the moon, and then they expand, and then these components are printed on top of them to be able to shield the astronauts from galactic particle rays, which would bombard the habitat and protect the crew. So yeah, there's a shot in some ISRU robotics that would dig up lunar regolith and ice to make it into fuel or water for the crew. Here's a shot of the XEVA spacesuit, which is the next generation spacesuit that NASA and now Axiom are designing for the Artemis mission. I think that's it, yeah.
Thank you, Julian. Great overview. So, as you can tell, a couple of very smart guys doing some amazing work in Unreal for real-world applications of how we get humans back to space, back to the moon. When we start talking about what does it mean to build a entertaining experience, turns out engineers aren't great at making games, in terms of gameplay. No offense. I fall into that category. I'm like, I don't know how to make a game or make it fun. Which brings us to Boomer Gurney from Team Power, a Fortnite Creative team that's been doing work in Fortnite for quite some time, who brought to this team some really wonderful ideas about how do we maintain an experience that is somewhat scientifically accurate and true to the work that's being done by ESA and NASA, but also make it fun, make it entertaining, make it something that people are going to want to actually go and play. So, Boomer, over to you on the work that you guys have done.
Thank you very much. Hi, everybody. I'm Boomer. I talked to the team to get a little video prepped, just to kind of talk about what this experience was and give a little background of Power. But hi, I lead Power's UGC development team, as you heard. And I'm here to talk to you today about the incredible experience of working with Epic Games, Buendia, and ESA to bring the moon to life in UEFN, which was So crazy. But before that, a little background on Power 2 and the fun side of things from the content creation. We started on YouTube with Lachlan Power. You might know him from Pokemon Go or his more recent Fortnite content. And then we kind of turned the Fortnite content from YouTube into Fortnite Creative, where we worked on projects like Tiny Town and got to work with just really awesome partners like Coca-Cola or even childhood dream of mine, helping bring Destiny 2 to life in the world of Fortnite, which as a massive nerd was so cool. And more recently, working with brands and partners to be integrated into this awesome metaverse that Epic Games is creating. Again, kind of seeing here at Tiny Town, we worked with Loser Fruit and Elf Cosmetics to integrate that into a store in our role play map, and also working with Vibe and Water on Fashion Showdown, which was our first really big UEFN project outside of this. And we used a lot of the tips and tricks we picked up from this experience and from working with all these incredibly smart and talented people to learn some of the new tools and make that possible. And just really excited to talk a little bit more about that here. First and foremost, my name is Boomer, so there's going to be a couple of space puns in here. So just to summarize, space, but not too much. And as everyone's kind of talked about, having maybe scaled down versions of certain craters and certain elements of the map, from a gameplay perspective, you think, hey, you want to spawn the player in the hab, and you want to have everything that's doable right in reach. You want to have the landing pads right out front, and you want to have the power supply right here. But very quickly does it become apparent that as we make this a more realistic experience, you can't have the landing pad right beside the hab because of all of the debris and dust and everything that can be kicked up and all of the mess that can mean. Like, I think one of the craziest things about this project was learning just how much of a problem dust is.
It's insane.
Yeah.
It's
Like,
insane.
imagine a cloud like normal rocket, but then this time in 1/6G, it travels much further. It's insane.
So to save players from having to traverse such a distance, we did have to scale a couple of things back and kind of make that middle line between fun and realistic to make sure we stay true to the story we want to tell, which is giving everyone this great bite-sized experience of going to the moon and what that will be like, but at the same time learn something and still have a good time doing it. Here you can kind of see just another elaboration of space, but not too much space, coming from Fortnite Creative into the world of UEFN. Space has always been a very controlling factor of what we can do, from like the amount of memory we have available in islands, but also just the size of the islands itself. There's these islands called grids, and then there's the biggest island called the XL grid, which was like monumental and creative, allowing us to spread out assets so it only loaded certain things. And the very first time hopping into UEFN and loading up the first template project here, they already had this just crazy gray landscape of craters. I mean, it went as far as the eye could see. And so coming from creative, seeing just a landscape of that scale was like, whoa! And to hear that it's all scaled down and realistic is extra mind-blowing. And the other part about this project, I mean, with every project, but it was just so cool to work and revise and learn, is the scope. When you're working with this many talented teams and so many cool assets and ideas, and with a concept as expansive as space itself, everyone has all these awesome concepts they want to bring to life in the project, but then it's also picking which concepts are going to be highlighted the best with the UEFN experience, the amount of time we have with players, and kind of working through there. So we had a couple of screenshots from at a point when we were like, oh, maybe we can have a zip line from the crater, helping players get in and out, or it's like maybe there's going to be an awesome lava tube mission, which again ties in a lot of the reality of where we'd be finding some of these resources. But where we land and what we were able to kind of pull through was exciting to get to. Not without trying and going all these different routes. Another little pun, leaping. All right, one big leap from creative into UEFN as we explore the verse. And verse has just been such an incredible thing to learn. It's so powerful, all the different utility you have. Still using a lot of these Fortnite devices and a lot of that same logic, but the capabilities that you can do with those same devices and what you can kind of rig up has just been mind-boggling and door-opening. And for us, it's like just talking about the finding resources in the project, putting down our little scanner and it giving you a hot and cold direction and pointing you towards, the great spots to collect. We had a way of doing it from a creative mindset, which involved a lot of collision volumes and so you're really having some unique stuff set up, but then being able to go into Verse and really get the player location, teleport something to them, and just have all these great workarounds to really make something modular and more in depth. And even just as similar and small as like once the cable goes out, you have to repair it, and then you have to go and do a bit of a memory game with these buttons on this really cool HUD that was built out. And initially that started as just like a little UI element, and players had to click buttons, but then bringing that into the world, being able to edit the materials and have things light up and change in the moment, and the incredible build material, like the super cool dynamic glow that again, we didn't make that. That was just something so cool to see and see the process. Even just talking about, I remember whenever we first got like drones into the map and seeing like control rig, allowing the wheels and tires to go over rocks and over craters. Again, just really cool tech and new tools available in UEFN. And it made all this possible, because really, as powerful and cool as Creative is, creating something to this scale, to this magnitude, just it was perfect for a UEFN experience. And then tying everything back into kind of like these little lunar lessons. A big part of this project was to give everyone a little bite of what it would be like to go to the moon, to make this habitat and to explore these areas, but not just do it from a gameplay perspective, but to really teach someone something and to try to make it fun, but also educational. And so there are these really fun little info points around the map where you can go and learn something. And sometimes it's, I don't know, like I think the craziest fact for me was just thinking about how in craters there is spots that have just never seen sunlight. Just
Bits of eternal darkness.
Isn't that just a cheery title? Pits of eternal darkness. That just
the cherry on the
sounds-
top is that there's only a handful of them in existence in the entire solar system. And there's one of the best one. Like there's a lot of them that are imperfect. That is uncertain orbital condition. They would still have a tiny bit of light. And there's few of them that are actually perfect that have been forever in darkness. And this one of the oldest one is right by our sides on the moon.
See, now we need to add another info point, just to elaborate a little further. But yeah, it's been so awesome working with such talented teams and getting the opportunity to learn UEFN and make that transition from creative into this really cool space, and see from some of the greats just how all these tools can really be utilized to go from good to great to amazing.
Boomer, thank you very much. That's great. Again, thank all three of you. Great overview of kind of the journey we've taken, the amazing work that you two are both doing, and how we sort of, what it meant to bring this into UEFN. James, I'm going to hand it over to you. This is, we've got this project here at Unreal Fest if you want to play it, but James is going to walk us through how it all came together and what it finally looks like.
Sure. Thanks very much, everyone. Amazing to work with you all. So let's see if we can play this. This is a quick overview of how it turned out. So like Julian was saying, this is based on real scan data from the moon. It was scaled a little bit, but fundamentally this is like the south pole of the moon, which is where they plan to build the habitat. And so we built this whole environment out for players to explore. You'll meet some of the astronauts wearing those actual spacesuits, and there are these info points around the place. This lander here is a model that came from ESA. This is from one of their VR training simulations. We didn't know about the ladder thing when we put this in, so we've been learning all the way along. These conversations continue as we add things and then iterate. But the space, it's amazing to see ray trace reflections on the helmet. All these features from UE just working in UEFN. But to take a CAD model from their training sims and just put it in. So we put these info points around where you can learn about the different things on the moon. For each info point you visit, you get a scanner pole that you can put down. And so the gameplay it's a tycoon game, essentially. You're putting down scanning poles around the moon to find these resources of water and helium-3, which you need to finish building the lunar habitat. So you put them down, and using Verse, we have some gameplay where you get the amount of resources they generate depends on how close you are to the point. And as you continue to build the base, the power goes out. You've got to ask a friendly astronaut to fix the cables for you, again using sequencer and Verse and all these different features that are in UEFN. So like Boomer was saying, you've got to reboot the power, then you can continue building. You drop your resources off at these points, and then when you've got enough resources, you can build a module. And so we can do these cool material effects. This is entirely accurate, right?
Totally. We'll do it exactly like this.
Bit more
Yes.
dust. We'll put the dust. And so to see the base come together, and we've got, like we were talking about, the articulation of using control rig on the rovers. And this is all co-op, so you can play multiple players at the same time, exploring the space, learning a little bit about what's going on, but also there's some fun gameplay in terms of where do you put your poles, how do we get resources as quickly as possible, and the satisfaction of seeing the base come together. We've got these rovers who are going out to that also generate resources for you, and little cinematic moments that you encounter where you, again, see the astronauts at their work. And then eventually you put the whole thing together. It takes about 15 minutes with a couple of players in. And then you see the whole thing. There's definitely a feeling of satisfaction of seeing that in context on the South Pole. So yeah, that's sort of where we're at the moment, and bringing together all those different aspects, the landscape, the gameplay, the assets, from all the different pieces. It was great to see it come together.
And you had a few people that were telling you, oh, that's a bug, the Earth is upside down, right?
Yeah. So one interesting one is we had people testing it, and one bit of feedback was like, yeah, the Earth seems to be upside down. You have to explain, we're at the South Pole of the Moon, which means it would be. And so it's like, oh yeah. And even so, like constantly as we talk to partners who really know this stuff, we keep learning things. Like just the other day, Marshall was saying, well, you shouldn't see the stars at all, right? Because the sun would be so bright on the surface of the moon, there's no way you could see the stars as well. And so, we have to balance these things. Like if we took all the stars out, we'd probably have our testers also saying the stars are all broken. Like, so it's just these conversations continue. How can we represent more ideas that are there? Like we've got so many more ideas than we managed to fit into the project at the moment.
There was also the ice lake that you have.
Yeah,
like, how do you represent the fact that there's water there?
Yeah.
Although it would probably not just be like a plane of water.
Yeah, we do have these two resources of finding ice in craters, which is sort of based on the real concept, but it wouldn't look like a skating rink as we have at the moment. And then helium-3 is something that's generated by, as far as I understand it, like solar radiation hitting the surface of the...
I'm not knowledgeable on this one,
okay.
Sorry.
But we've got a little sort of yellow particle effect on there, and these resources do deplete, and you have to then move your poles somewhere else, and so, again, it's a bit of gameplay that's based on that. But so continuing to learn about it, we all learned so much, I think, during the process, and we hope that people playing it at some point, we don't know yet whether we're going to release it. We hope we can, but, TBD. But definitely play it here, and then we've got it downstairs as well. If you're interested in seeing how it all works, in the main expo area, we've got it on an editor build there, so we're happy to go through and explain how we did various things and use the different features. But this is where it is at the moment.
Or if you have space questions.
So we'll have a minute for questions in just a second. So if you do have questions, please let us know. I have one more question for you, James. Where do you see? Curious to get your thoughts. You've been at Epic for a very long time. What are your thoughts about where this project as one example, but UEFN in general? What do you think? What do you think the future of Unreal, UEFN, how they might converge, and what the possibilities are with projects like this? Because I think one of the unique things about this, and one of the things that a lot of people have questions about is, Fortnite, it's a shooter game. You're gonna go, shoot up your friends, whatever. This is an experience where all of a sudden we're talking about educational value, things that you can expose people to in a different way. Curious to get your thoughts on what's the future. What's that?
Yeah, leave it playing for some spacey music. No, I think it's a great question, and we're still figuring it out, and everyone else is figuring it out with us, and it's been amazing to be at the show and talk to different people who are trying to do different things. I think it does prove some of the original sort of concepts of like, can we use assets from other industries? And when we think about all the different places that Unreal is used, it's used for architecture, it's used for trading, it's used for cars, it's used for education already, it's used for media and entertainment. It does prove that those people and those experiences can come in and make something a bit different. I think there's lots of things that we need to figure out about how do we connect what players are interested in and what the expectations of players are into this, and finding that balance of like doing something that's a bit different than maybe the core sort of games that we're seeing in Fortnite at the moment, to bring something new to it, but not so different that it's just not of interest to people. So there's a ton to learn there, and that's why we absolutely need people like Boomer and teams like that who understand the audience and can think on both sides of that situation. But I think as someone with an ecosystem like this, there's an opportunity, but also kind of a responsibility to be investigating these different ways that we can engage creators, engage different organizations, engage audiences, and have these sort of interesting conversations and really bring that to everybody. So it's hugely inspiring, it's hugely exciting. I mean, I think it's hard to think of a place that's the intersection of so many different interesting areas and impactful areas that as a game engine right now. So it's a huge privilege and exciting.
That's great. And one more question. That's great, and couldn't agree more. There's been some talk, I think Bill Clifford mentioned it in the keynote, and various other people. What's your view on the eventual or potential merging of what UE is and what UEFN is, and not necessarily going into where the roadmap's really going, but like, do you think that's a place that convergence is going to be a place where eventually people will be able to start developing and go, I could go to Fortnite or I could go to an external thing? I mean, is that the vision? Is that the future?
I mean, I think you see that in some places already, right? You can bring, we've shown it here, we can bring assets over, you can use control rig in the same way, you can use sequencer in the same way, materials work the same way, the lighting and nanite systems work the same way. So already a lot of the experience and the way that you do things transfer directly across. There's certainly things we're learning. That's why we do projects like this. We've understood, okay, there are certain things that are quite painful or difficult right now. We're talking to the development team and moving those things forwards and making those things easier. So I think it's one step at a time. We're understanding how to use Verse. Like Boomer said, it's such a big step on from what we had previously in Creative with just using these devices to build gameplay. So we can already see huge opportunities there. But okay, what's next? What's next? I think we're just taking it one step at a time. But we can see already there are going to be other features that come online. We're talking here about what does animation look like? And right now, one thing we can't do is change the way the player's running around without a spacesuit on. And that came up a little bit in the Q&A the other day. That's a really interesting question for us to think about. It would be great if these. We talked early on about having the astronauts be NPC AI that could run around, walk around, and be more sort of procedural than just like canned animations. And again, I'd love to see things like that. Like we'd love to have scan some actual astronauts and have them there to talk to you. So I think there's lots of opportunities there, and sort of connecting between islands and all kinds of things. So there's a huge opportunity to go further. So I think it's going to be like one feature at a time, one step at a time. But there's clearly people have come from UE into UEFN very quickly if you have that experience. So yeah.
So I have just maybe we've got a little bit more time. A question maybe for Marshall and Julian or Boomer, if you want to chime in. From ESA's standpoint, where Unreal is used very much as an engineering and training type tool, what value do you think you see from a UEFN type experience, either something like this or something else that might be done? Do you see that as something that has? I mean, clearly we see value in this in exploring what UEFN is capable of doing, things that we can do in Fortnite. What do you think ESA's thought would be on what is the utility, what is the future, or something like this, or
okay. I can chime in a little bit, and if you want.
Yeah, go for it.
Okay. Essentially, outreach is not optional. For a space agency, we're not a company. We're not there to operate on profit. We're there to essentially make people proud, and that's very useful for a country to dynamize it. So I'm here, like my boss has sent me here, because then I can talk to people, and then suddenly when we bring space closer to the people, when they identify better to space exploration, it doesn't mean that everybody's got to apply to be an astronaut, right? It means just pursue your dreams, be it to be dentist, to be a violinist, or to be like whomever you want to be. The message we're bringing is, look at how hard we worked, but we did something great, right? So do the same, like whatever your dream, just go and achieve it, right? That's what Fortnite brings us. That's why I'm excited to be here.
That's great answer. I love that. Julian, any comments?
Yeah, I think from the perspective of making things or allowing creativity to flourish in an easy way, for it to translate from an idea to live on a space like UEFN, I think that is really something that facilitates ideation. And I guess from that perspective, to allow some of these ideas that could be everything from a design that someone comes up with to live on a place that everyone can visit, I think that in itself is an effective way of conveying ideas. Yeah. So, yeah.
Very good. Great. Thank you both. Boomer, any from a creative perspective, how do you view UEFN versus Fortnite Creative, and what those two sort of approaches to creating things like this? How do you see UEFN changing the landscape for things that you guys do?
Yeah, I think creative already was like something that allowed, honestly, talk about like chasing dreams and whatnot. I think a lot of people, especially like younger growing up, see all these great games, especially with how popular they've become in culture, and be like, I want to make that, or like, I got an idea. Right. And I think creative was already such a great open door to allow people to like learn and kind of dip their toes. And I think UEFN is that next step, that bridge that allows someone like myself that has some experience making games, doing this, but to work with so many just incredible people and make not just games, not just the red versus blues you might see somewhere in Fortnite Creative, but something educational and incredible and kind of, in my opinion, very boundary breaking and pushing like this. And just really special to be able to accomplish it.
Thanks, Boomer. Appreciate it. Thank you all very much. It's been great. It's been a great couple of years. It's been a while. Thank you all for being here today. Thank you for the work that you've done on this. Thank you all for showing up. If you have questions, please, there's a mic here. Please, if you get a chance, as James said, we've got Lunar Horizons playing in the gamer lounge all the way at the end of this hall. If you want to look at UEFN and the experience from the editor perspective, we have that downstairs in the expo area. We could show you some of the mechanics of how that works, show you Verse, talk to you some stuff like that. So thank you all very much. Please give the panel a hand here. Really appreciate it.